Welcome to Global Tax Talk. I'm Will Morris, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Durval Portela. Durval, great to see you.
Nice to be here with you, Will. Great pleasure to be here with you.
Good. So look, a huge amount going on in Brazil. Brazil is in the midst of this gigantic overhaul of the country's federal, state, and local consumption taxes, as well as transaction taxes. So where are we now? And what are the most significant reforms that have been enacted so far for companies to address?
Well, Will, I can say that indeed the Brazilian tax environment has been quite dynamic lately. On top of our recent changes on our transfer pricing rules, where we have seek alignment with the OECD standards, and it is in force as from 2024. Last year, in December, we have just approved by a constitutional amendment our huge tax reform on consumption.
Yep.
Meaning that we're going to adopt the VAT model, the value-added tax model that the entire globe has already adopted, and Brazil has now.
The entire globe except the United States. Just to
well said. And now Brazil is adopting it. As I had mentioned, we have approved the constitutional amendment, which was, the toughest phase for the reform. And now the reform is being regulated by complementary law that is under analysis by our Congress. Well, the changes, I can tell you, are disruptive to the entire consumption systems in Brazil. In a nutshell, we're gonna combine 4 taxes: 2 federal social contributions, PIS and COFINS, the state tax ICMS, kind of a VAT that never works as a real VAT, and our municipal tax on services, ISS. These 4 taxes, social contributions and tax, will be combined into 2 taxes. The one is at the federal level, contributions on services and goods, and the other one is at the state and municipal level, that is the tax on goods and services, the IBS. That's why we are calling it the dual IVA at the level of the federal collection and the state and municipal collection. And on top of that, we're going to have a new excise tax, so-called tax under, bad externalities. So this tax will levy on any kind of good and services that will harm the health and the environment. This is going to replace our IPI. The IPI will be reduced in order to allow the other states that are not located in the northeast region, that we call, our Zona Franca de Manaus, in order to maintain the competition of the companies that are located in the Zona Franca de Manaus, which is our one of the regions that is tax incentivized in Brazil. And actually, one of the main aspects of the reform is the fact that all kinds of incentives will be reduced, and the VAT will levy, with some exceptions, in all kinds of transactions involving goods and services in a very broad way in Brazil. As I mentioned, these changes, they are still being regulated in order to be into effect as from 2026. But on top of that, just talking about recent changes, we have just approved by a provisional measure one of the rules that are under the umbrella of the Pillar 2 system, the key DMTT1 by means of a additional of our social contribution on net income. It has just been approved, actually enacted by a provisional measure by the federal government. Establish, the minimum taxation of 15% on net income in Brazil. I must say that this provisional measure, it has, since from its inaction, the enforceability of a law. However, if it's not approved within 120 days, it will not be into effect.
Okay.
Retroactively since the first amendment of it has been enacted, with some exceptions depending on the way the Congress is about to regulate this situation, if it occurs.
Okay. So look, a huge amount has happened. I was going to ask you about some of the dates that companies should be looking out for. I think we've covered some of this. So let me skip to my final question here is, so, I mean, the practical effects of this reform on businesses, what are those and what are some of the benefits as well as the challenges? Because we're always trying to look for opportunities, what's good in this. So could you talk a little about that?
Sure. Talking specifically about our taxation on consumer, I'd say that the reform will bring modernization, simplification, and rationalization of our tax systems, which is quite complex in terms of taxation on consumption. We all understand that in Brazil, one of the main issues is the fact that you do not have a real VAT that neutralize all the tax inputs through the chains.
Yep.
The purpose is to bring a VAT that really neutralizes it, avoiding the exportation of taxes, avoiding the accumulation of tax credits, and so on. So the way the reform has been designed is indeed addressing all these issues, is indeed bringing, as I said, modernization, simplification, and rationalization to our tax systems, thus bringing an improvement to the business environment. The company as a whole, they see it as a great opportunity, to bring rationality to their business in Brazil. In Brazil, one of the main characteristics of any kind of investments is that the investment is anchored in tax benefits.
Right.
Meaning that all other aspects that should move the economy, like being close to the supplier, close to the market, is, somehow superseded by the advantages that the tax benefits bring to the investments. So all of this will not exist within 9 years. This is going to be the period of implementation of the tax reform. So in a nutshell, the expectations are quite high, but companies, in our opinion, should address the change as a risk management in order to convert risk into benefits.
Right.
And the way to do it, I can summarize in 5 behaviors that we are, advising our clients to pursue. The first one is, again, to treat it as something that will disrupt the business in a very deep manner. Second, to treat it as a risk management with the end to turn risk into opportunity. Right. Third aspect is to involve the entire stakeholders of the business, because our tax reform is not just a question of change in tax on consumption. This is going to change the entire business, just like I said.
Right.
For instance, all kind of, distributions, all kind of relationship with suppliers, all kind of movement in the chains, in the way the company you put the products in the market, this is going to change dramatically. The fourth aspect is, to do a lot of modeling right now to use the data in the smart manner possible, to use the data in order to do all kinds of predictions, all kinds of simulations, even considering pricing, how the pricing will be afforded by your consumer markets, how this is going to impact the entire chain of any kind of a business, and how the relationship will be established upon the fact that, all the rationale behind the business will indeed meet the suppliers, the market, the infrastructure in order to distribute the products, the service, and so on. And finally, we do recommend that this is something that should be at the agenda, in the agenda of the board, and in the agenda of the C-level for the coming 9 years. That's going to be the period of adaptation of the world systems versus the new one system.
Yep. Good. Well, that's great. I mean, really, what great advice, but equally, what an interesting, as you say, challenging, but also opportunity-filled time, perhaps. So, Durval, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great to have you here, and we'll look forward to getting you back at some point.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here with you.
And thank you for joining us, and come back again next time so that you stay global tax ready.